I'm Jacob Volk. Sitting across from me, Dominic Arbolino and Eric Fischetti, and we are fortunate enough to be joined by Erik Boland, Newsday's New York Yankee beat writer. Eric, how are you?
I'm doing great, guys. How are you this morning?
Doing good. So, obviously, spring training just started, but what are your impressions of Aaron Boone?
Certainly a sea change from Joe Girardi, and that's exactly what the Yankees were looking for when they hired him, and probably don't need to go back into the specifics of that move. Brian Cashman and Hal Steinbrenner talked extensively, when they made the move, why they felt they needed to do that. I can't say that it's a looser spring training or anything like that. Look, Joe Girardi ran a very tight, spring training in terms of the schedule. If a drill was supposed to start at 9:32, it started at 9:32. Maybe it's not quite as rigid under Aaron Boone, but in terms of the amount of work that's getting done and the work that is getting done, I haven't really noticed too big of a difference, nor in terms of relating to players, because frankly, and Aaron Boone has said this a few times, he's still in the process of establishing those relationships with players.
All right, so there's been a lot of questions thrown up, this offseason with possibly the Yankees adding another pitcher, whether it's throughout free agency or trade. So do you think there's a possibility that they look to add another starting pitcher for that rotation, or do you think they'll just roll with like Montgomery or something like that?
Well, I think the closer we get to the regular season, it looks as though they'll end up going with what they have, but there's nothing that precludes them as we get to the trade deadline from going out and getting somebody, and I think that's when that move is going to take place. Look, I wouldn't be surprised if they pulled off a deal for a veteran arm, much in the way they did just the other day with the Brandon Drury acquisition, where something happens during spring training. I wouldn't discount that as a possibility, but I think the stronger possibility in terms of adding another quality arm, which Cashman all winter long has said was something that he wanted to do, I think the chances are greater that something like that takes place when you get up closer to the trade deadline in July.
Okay, and just piggybacking off of Aaron Boone, like what Jacob said earlier, Aaron Boone has probably the best job in the world right now in just trying to figure out where you want to put Giancarlo Stanton or even Aaron Judge in the lineup. So if you were Aaron Boone, what's your opening day lineup like?
Well, I think that's something that they're going to, spend the spring trying to figure out whether they want to have, he has said Judge or Stanton is going to hit in the 2-hole. And then the other question is, how do you split up, if you want to split up the three big righty bats in a row, which of course is Stanton, Judge, and Gary Sanchez. And do you want to stick a Greg Bird in between them to, split them up with a lefty bat, or Didi Gregorius, who hit 25 home runs last year. So that's, I think, the way that, how the spring is going to play out. One of the very interesting storylines, I think, will be exactly that. Bird is hitting third today, but don't draw too much conclusions from that, because you only have a handful of regulars that are in the lineup. And really the first 3 or 4 weeks of spring training, even longer than that, you never get more than 4 or 5 regulars in a given lineup, so you can't draw too much from where guys are batting at this point in the spring, or even, like I said, a month from now in the spring. But, that is one of those things that is going to be kind of fascinating to watch as the next 6 weeks of games play out, because, the lineup is terrific. It's going to score a lot of runs. There's a lot of power potential there. I don't want to say it doesn't matter where you hit these guys, but in some ways it really probably doesn't. This lineup's going to score runs no matter what. It's just a matter of, how they want to align the chess pieces.
Well, it doesn't matter if MLB institutes that stupid rule about changing the batting order up in the 9th inning.
Yeah, well, I don't, I'm suspicious of exactly the origins of that. I have my doubts that was an actual, big-time major league executive that said something like that. And if it was, that he was actually being serious about it. I like I said, I sort of have my suspicions on that story. I don't think, in other words, I really don't think that it's anything that's been considered or seriously considered or even lightly considered by Major League Baseball, because that's so out there.
God, I hope so. Talking to Erik Boland, Newsday's New York Yankee beat writer. So, if the season started tomorrow, who's the opening day second baseman?
Somebody asked me that the other day, and I kind of a knee-jerk first reaction was I'll go with Tyler Wade.
Okay, all right. What about Torreyes?
But it is a wide open competition. Torreyes, I certainly think is a possibility. My suspicion is that they like Torreyes exactly in the role that he excelled in last year, which is a super utility guy. You could put him anywhere, and he also showed that he could hit a little bit last year, which we had not seen from him in the past. So I think they kind of like him already in that spot. But if Torreyes was the guy at second base, and I'm guessing you mean Ronald Torreyes and not
Ronald Torreyes,
not Gleyber Torres. I would give a slight nod to Wade, but I wouldn't be shocked if it was Torreyes either.
All right, so one thing about the Yankees that was noticeable last season is that they totally shocked the MLB and were a great team when they really weren't projected to, in the beginning of the season to be all that well. So my question for you is what do you think the expectations are for the Yankees this year after just falling short one game of a World Series?
I think both inside the organization and certainly with the Yankee fans, it would be considered a huge disappointment if they don't get to the World Series. When you get to Game 7 and you're on the doorstep like that, and remember, they got to Game 7 and lost. After leading that series 3-2, they went back to Houston and then didn't score a run down there in the last 2 games. I think that the expectation, I don't want to say World Series or bust, but I think a lot of fans certainly feel that way. No one in the clubhouse would come out and say that, but certainly the feeling is that they're a World Series team and that they should get there.
I think a lot of Yankee fans can agree with you, but obviously the Yankees, the Rays, and the Diamondbacks made a 3-way trade recently, acquiring Brandon Drury from the Diamondbacks. Now, Cashman came out and said that he does like Brandon Drury, and he does expect him to play third base. So what does this mean for players like Miguel Andujar and Gleyber Torres? Are they blocked now, or do you think they have every opportunity to get that third base job?
Well, Cashman said that Drury, because of his big league experience and basically 2 full years in the big leagues, has a, quote, leg up in the competition. So it impacts Andujar more than it does Gleyber Torres, because Gleyber Torres really wasn't going to be considered for the starting third base job. It was possible that he could end up there, but the plan all along was to have him see most of his time during the spring at second base, and that's where he's starting today. So, even though he has a leg up in the competition, though, and I'm talking about Drury, one of the things that Cashman said was that nothing's going to be handed to anybody. So, Drury, if he just plays reasonably well this spring, is going to end up as the third baseman. So, again, Andujar is the one that's going to be more immediately impacted than Gleyber Torres, because Andujar does not play in another position but third base. And Torres, obviously, even though he came up as a shortstop and was drafted as a shortstop, he got moved around at third, short, and second pretty much all of last year. I think you'll see him at those 3 positions this spring, but it'll be primarily at second base.
Talking to Erik Boland, Newsday's New York Yankee beat writer. And Erik, I'll get you out on this, piggybacking off of what you just said. Guys like Miguel Andujar, Clint Frazier, even someone like Gleyber Torres may be considered blocked. Do you see any more trades happening before the season starts?
If there was a trade, it would be for a starting pitcher, I think, like we talked about earlier. Cashman does have a history of pulling off some deals, minor deals, during spring training. The Drury one somewhere in between a major and a minor deal. I guess it's more closer to major if you acquire a starting third baseman. But again, the one need that they have left is starting pitching, and so you usually are not able to pull off those kind of trades in the spring training unless it's I guess if they got Chris Archer from the Rays, because the Rays are selling everybody. But I don't foresee them trading within the division a player of that caliber. So if you made me put a gun to my head and said make a prediction on it, I would say that deal won't come until we get closer to the trade deadline.
What about guys like Ellsbury and Betances? Are they close to being traded? Hopefully? No.
You want Dylan Betances in the hopefully category to be traded?
To be honest with you, yes. Just because I'm really not sold on him based on how he finished the season last year, and he's walking.
Wait a minute. 4 straight All-Star bids, and he had one bad month, and you're ready to give up on him?
He did not have just one bad month. He was horrible as a closer, and he laid an egg in the playoffs. To be honest with you, I'm selling his stock.
Okay.
What about Ellsbury?
Ellsbury, nobody wants him. I mean, that's the bottom line. You're talking about, I talked to a opposing team executive at the winter meetings about this, and I said, what would it take for you to take Ellsbury? And he said, even if the Yankees agreed to pay almost all of what he's owed, he goes, you're giving me a below average player. What's in it for me?
No, that's
fair. Even if I don't have to pay him, I'm getting a below average player. Now, obviously, Scott Boris's agent and the Yankees to a degree would disagree with that assessment. They would say Ellsbury last year had 2 segments of the season that he played reasonably well in. First 6 weeks until he ran into the wall against Kansas City and the concussion.
Yeah.
Up until then, he had been playing really well, and it was kind of lost in Aaron Judge's great September. But Ellsbury was really good in September also, and then of course didn't play in any of the playoff games. But by and large, you can't look at his career in pinstripes as anything other than sort of a disappointment, and I think they're going to have a heck of a very difficult time moving him, unless a team has a couple of outfielders that go down and they're desperate. Then maybe some kind of a deal could get made with him.
Is he a shell of his former self from what he was in Boston, in your opinion?
I don't know. I mean, if you look at his career overall, he has that one year that jumps out at you, the 30 home run year. But other than that, the Yankees overpaid and they bid against themselves. There's really no other way to look at it. I mean, there wasn't a second-place team when they gave him $153 million 4 years ago. It wasn't like somebody else was offering $145 million and the Yankees had to up their bid. Nobody was even close to being in the ballpark in terms of interest in dollars to commit to him. So, I think he's always been, when he's been healthy, a very good player. I think other than that, just that one season when he had the 30 home runs, I don't think he's ever been a star.
All right, Eric, you're the best. Thank you for your time.
My pleasure, guys. Take care.
Thank you.
All right, that was Erik Boland. He's Newsday's New York Yankee beat writer. Let's take a quick break, but don't go anywhere because there's more of Beyond the Game coming up next on the Voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Hi, I'm Danica Patrick and proud aunt. Watching my nieces grow, play, and learn is amazing. But not every child gets to be carefree. 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. are hungry. 1 in 6. That little girl sitting alone at the playground, she can't play like the other kids. She doesn't have the energy because she's hungry. School lunch will be her only meal today. It breaks my heart that this is the reality in our country, but it's something that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste. This food is then provided to families and children in need. Being a kid should be about using your imagination, learning, and having fun. These children shouldn't have to miss out on simply being a kid because they're hungry. To find out how you can help end childhood hunger in your community, visit feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Alexa, can you please do my food shopping today?
Food shopping today added to your shopping list.
Alexa, can you do my math homework for me?
I'm not sure.
Alexa, play WHPC.
Play WHPC.
Now listen to the voice of Nassau Community College on your Amazon Echo.
Simply say, Alexa, play WHPC.
I am already playing WHPC.
Sorry. So go ahead and buy a silicone steamer in the shape of a faceless melting pig.
Buy a silicone steamer in the shape of a faceless melting pig.
Yeah, that exists. And while you shop, play WHPC.
Or buy a headband with a mullet hair attached to it.
I refuse to buy a headband with mullet hair attached to it.
Yeah, that exists too. Not sure why. But when you buy it, you can play WHPC.
So play WHPC on your Amazon device today.
And thanks for listening to 90.3 WHPC.
You didn't hear this one yet, did you?
I don't think you did.
Take a look.
Joe likes this one. Joe Ardita likes this one.
This one's kind of cool, I guess.
Thank you! Yeah! I finally found one that you like!
This one's alright.
Yeah! Okay, good. I'll make sure just to play this one.
Play for the rest of the show.
You're listening to Beyond the Game on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. We are live twice a week, Tuesdays at 5 p.m. and Fridays at 3 p.m. I'm Jacob Volk. You can follow me on Twitter at RealJacobVolk. Sitting across from me, Dominic Arbolino, who you can follow on Twitter